Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Last week, we talked about using existing data for problem solving. But what if the right kind of data isn't available? Well, then you'll have to make your own. You've probably heard of surveys and interviews to get data, but there are other techniques you can use as well. And today we'll cover some of those ways in our 5 key takeaways when creating new data for problem solving. Let's start with interviews. They are awesome for gathering rich, detailed information from individuals. They allow you to explore topics in depth, ask follow up questions, and gain insights into people's experiences and perspectives. You can also consider incorporating focus groups instead of or alongside those interviews. Focus groups bring together a small group of people and let them discuss a specific topic, giving you a chance to get a range of perspectives and identify common themes that maybe wouldn't come up in an individual interview. Here are some tips to keep in mind if you do decide to do interviews or focus groups. To start, make sure to create a guide. It will help ensure that you cover all the essential topics and maintain consistency if you're doing multiple interviews or focus groups. Make sure to actively listen and ask follow-up questions. Encourage people to elaborate on their responses and probe for deeper insights. Also, you should be mindful of your own biases as an interviewer. Our own beliefs can influence how we ask questions and also how we interpret responses. Strive for neutrality in your questions and interpretation if you can. All right, the ever popular survey. Surveys are so popular because they're a great way to gather data from a large group of people efficiently. They allow you to gather quantitative and qualitative data on opinions, behaviors, and demographics. But there's actually a lot more to doing surveys well than people think. We all get asked to do surveys all the time. Survey fatigue is a real thing. So, a tip is to always keep your survey concise and focused. People are way more likely to complete a shorter survey. You want to also write clear and unambiguous questions. Avoid jargon or acronyms and stay away from those double-barreled questions. You know, those ones where you're actually asking two different things inside of one question? And always, always, always pilot test your survey. Ask a small group to complete it, analyze the data that you get, and make adjustments before you send it out more broadly. Piloting is crucial to help you identify any confusing questions, any layout issues, and it can help you determine if the data that you're going to get back will be usable before you waste everyone's time asking for it. Number 3, seeing is believing. Observation involves watching and recording people's behaviors in natural settings. It's great for revealing hidden patterns and identifying those workarounds that people use but don't tell you about in interviews or surveys. It's fascinating to see just how different what people say they do is from what they actually do. To analyze observational data effectively, you may want to consider using behavioral coding, which involves developing a system to categorize and quantify specific behaviors that you observe. Also, if something's a little too difficult for you to observe directly, you can try diary studies. In a diary study, the participants record their own experiences, thoughts, and behaviors over a period of time. This type of approach can also give you a longer view and a more natural understanding of how people might interact with the thing you're interested in over the course of their daily activities. When doing these kinds of things, it's best to start with clear observation goals. Make sure that you define what specific behaviors you're interested in observing and create an observation protocol. This essentially gives you an outline of how you or others will record the observations and ensure that it's measured consistently. And keep in mind, there's this thing called the Hawthorne effect, which is that basically people have a tendency to change their behavior if they know they're being watched. So watch out for that one. 4, Participatory approaches. These involve actively involving stakeholders in the research process. They can lead to a deeper understanding of the issues, and they're really great for co-creating solutions with the people who will be affected by them. There are so many different participatory methods available for you to involve stakeholders. There are workshops, co-design sessions, citizen science projects, community forums. All of these things can produce really great insights, and they also have the added benefit of building community and can be kind of fun. But if you're going to use any participatory method, make sure that you are paying attention to who the participant should be. You want to include the right people, people with the relevant knowledge or experience for what you're trying to understand. You want to make sure that everyone understands their role in the process and what the expected outcomes are. And you want to put effort into creating a truly collaborative environment to get the outcomes that you're looking for. Encourage open communication and active participation from everyone that's present. All right, before you jump to actually collecting data with some of these techniques, it's crucial to first consider how are you going to select your sample or participants. Usually we want to know things about a really large group of people, but it's impossible to study every person ever. So we take a sample or subset of those people to help us represent the bigger population. A solid understanding of sampling methods is critical. Selecting the right method can keep you from accidentally creating data that's skewed or biased or leaves out particular things. When choosing your sampling methods, you're going to need to consider things like your research question, the population size, and also what resources and timing you have available to you. There are tons of different sampling methods. Each have their own strengths and weaknesses, but typically the first thing you have to decide is, do you want to use random or convenient sampling? In random sampling, everyone in the population has an equal chance of being selected. This is a great way to ensure an unbiased sample, but it can be a little impractical if you're trying to do it for a large population. Convenience sampling, on the other hand, is when the easiest, most accessible sample is chosen, often trying to take advantage of places where people are already readily available, like at a location or a place online. This method is quick and relatively less expensive, but can sometimes lead to biased results if the sample isn't truly representative of the population you're trying to study. Once you choose random or convenient, there's still a lot of possibilities of sampling choices to choose from. You might hear about snowball sampling, where you rely on existing participants to recruit other participants for you, or quota sampling, where you select participants to meet specific quotas based on some predetermined characteristic. You may consider cluster sampling, where you sample groups or clusters of people rather than individuals. You may choose to use systematic sampling, the selecting of participants at regular intervals from a list, and more methods. In fact, I'll give you an example and use two different ones. Let's just say that you're interested in understanding student experiences with a new online learning platform. You might choose a random sample of students from the university. This will ensure that everyone has an equal chance of being selected. But you may decide to do what's called stratified sampling, where the population is divided into subgroups, or strata from the word stratify, and then create those groups based on relevant characteristics to what you're trying to study. For example, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and then you randomly select participants from each group. Doing this would help your sample reflect the distribution of students by year level in the university population a bit better than a completely random sample. Or maybe you decided to use a convenience sample. You can add on the method of purposive sampling, an approach where you select participants based on specific criteria. You could conveniently target students enrolled in a course that is currently using this new platform. And even though this approach might mean you're limited to only those types of students, the ones who actually wanted to be in that class or had to be in that class. The benefits of focusing on the people who are directly impacted by this new technology system may still make it the best choice for you. When it comes to sampling, take care that you have a large enough sample size to actually get useful data. A larger sample size generally uncovers more patterns and leads to more statistically reliable results. And you can find plenty of online tools and statistical formulas to help you select the right sample size for your research. And remember to be transparent about your sampling approach when sharing your findings. All right, we're at the end of our 5 key takeaways, but please don't leave thinking these are the only ways to gather new data. There's a ton of other methods out there. We haven't even covered experiments, data derivation from existing sources, crowdsourcing, simulations, qualitative product comparisons, not to mention all the many, many ways you could design and develop new features in systems that will do that data collection for you. Unfortunately, we can't explore all of them today, but we will be talking about using business experiments to create data for problem solving in our next video. If you happen to have a favorite method for gathering new data, please share it in the comments, and I hope to see you next week to talk about experiments.